Hello dear viewers, and welcome back to the ancient dwarven hold of our ancestors. Today I shall be talking about the game Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Martyr Prophecy. It was developed and published by Neocore Games and was released in July of 2019. If I could quickly mention, dear viewer, that if you like what I do down here in the ancient hold, then perhaps you might consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Giving this a like and perhaps leaving a comment with your thoughts on the game would also be most awesome. I truly appreciate anyone that shows support for my little channel, and I reply to every single comment. Now, Prophecy, which I will now refer to as, is a standalone expansion to the game Inquisitor Martyr, which I've actually done a video on before and will be somewhere hereabouts on the screen for you to check out if you want to know where it all started. Likewise, if you haven't played Inquisitor Martyr, I would recommend you perhaps check out that first, so you can then experience the game from the beginning, of which Prophecy will then continue. I will just mention, dear viewer, if I may, that I was obviously aware of Prophecy for several years, but I wasn't actually sure whether it was some standalone thing that ran in parallel with the base game, or just provided a new class and all that. It is, of course, possibly that I'm just a silly old dwarf, but perhaps it might have been a little clearer if it stated somewhere near the top that this was in fact a continuation of the story of the game, as well as providing new features. Again, it may well just me being an old and tired dwarf and not paying attention. The Inquisitors of the Imperium of Man come in all shapes and sizes, the better to adapt to the many threats from both within and without the Emperor's realm. The Imperium consists of many different parts, and one of those parts is the Adeptus Mechanicus. The Adeptus Mechanicus concern themselves with all things mechanical, from simple servo skulls all the way up to the great god machines of the Adeptus Titanicus, and, of course, the maintenance of the Golden Throne, upon which sits the husked remains of the God Emperor of mankind. The Mechanicum constructs and maintains all mechanical things in the Imperium. Not only this, they venerate and essentially worship machines at the same time, to the point that adepts are known as priests. Members of the Mechanicus perform special rites and psalms with incense and all sorts when maintaining machines. They are an interesting part of the Imperium of Man and the Warhammer universe as a whole, with their belief in the machine god that is or isn't the Emperor himself, and the existence of the Void Dragon and all this other stuff. As with the background of many a thing in Warhammer 40,000, if you're interested in knowing more, then I would suggest checking out some of the more lore-focused channels here on the YouTubes, which cover things in great detail. There is a lot of lore out there, which can be interesting and fun to learn about, but fret not, dear viewers. You don't need to have intricate knowledge of the background of Warhammer 40,000 to properly play this game and understand what's going on. So, Prophecy brings with it the chance to play as an Inquisitor who was once a Tech-Adept of the Mechanicus. This is a whole new class which focuses on summoning minions to fight alongside you and take the fight to the enemies of man. As a summoner-like class, a lot of the fighting is done by the units you summon, and as you probably guessed, these are all machines and constructs. Your Inquisitor is able to equip melee axes and rifle guns, which come with their own abilities for you to use, but also active slots from which you can assign different machines for you to summon. All the war gear for your character is specifically for your class, as is mostly the case with the other classes. This means you cannot shift about too much with what you want to use, which is definitely restricting, and I wish I could use whatever I wanted. But the game is very thematic, with each class having its own unique playstyle, so I understand. The constructs themselves come in different shapes and sizes, from big servitor types on tracks with big weapons to small four-legged bots that can carry a variety of weapon loadouts. If you enjoy the summoner classes in other games, then I think you'll enjoy this class. There are numerous ways to fit out your minions along with yourself, which gives you some interesting ways to customise your character. Part of this is the talent trees that already exist in the base game. But there are several new talent trees you can put points into, which will enhance the prowess of your summoned units. If you were really looking to roleplay as a member of the Cult Mechanicus, with robots and all sorts running around the place, then you'll definitely enjoy this class. Prophecy directly follows on from the events of Inquisitor Martyr. I won't spoil anything, but I would like to say it works well narrative-wise and provides a nice conclusion to the story. If you wish to play as the new Mechanicus class, you will first do a unique chapter which brings you up to speed before venturing forth onto the new chapters of the main story. Do not fret though, if you wish to play the new chapters and finish the story with an existing character and have the base game, then you can do this no problem. I played the new class for a few hours and thought it was good fun, though I'm not really into summoner classes myself, so I switched over to the melee focused Crusader and set about decimating the enemies of the God Emperor of mankind. The graphics of Prophecy are obviously as they were in the base game. It captures the grim atmosphere of the 41st millennium very well. You feel like you are in this universe, with all the grit and darkness contained within. For in the current time of the Imperium, life is very much a grim place, full of perpetual war and strife. The entrails of heretics and Xenos are blasted to bits as you smite them with righteous zeal. With regards to any technical issues, sometimes the game might chug somewhat with a lot of creatures and explosions going on screen, and there is the occasional artifacting, but I didn't have any hard crashes while playing. As before, the environments of the game consist of Imperial ships, hive world, desolate planets and more. It all looks as good as it was, but of course Prophecy itself is 5 years old, with the base game being older, so it isn't going to look absolutely top notch. That doesn't matter, as it's more than good enough for me, and I think getting the setting right with the right feeling is what's most important. If you follow this universe in any kind of way, then you'll notice all the little additions and features that make 40k what it is. You cannot fault Neocore for their work here. And there are lots of Xenos to be fighting here as well, with Chaos Elder and Dark Elder, Tyranids and some other interesting individuals for you to encounter. So there is plenty to be getting on with in terms of who to deliver the Emperor's justice upon. More of the same good stuff, which I think is great. The endgame stuff from before is still available, with the Void Crusades along with different maps you can do, enhanced by Uther's tarot cards and the DLC missions. A new feature with Prophecy is the addition of the 3 branches of the Inquisition, of whom you can complete missions for. There are 3 main branches of the Inquisition, for many are the twisted and groping threats to the Emperor's realm. Firstly, there is the Ordo Xenos, that branch of the Inquisition which deals with the threats of the alien, Orcs, Tyranids, Elder, Necrons and so forth. Then there is the Ordo Hereticus, which deals with the threat from within, from the very people they seek to protect. Lastly is the Ordo Malleus, who must deal with perhaps the most dangerous threat to mankind, the machinations of the foul gods of chaos. You can choose to complete up to 3 different Order quests a week for any of the 3 branches. When you finish one of these missions, you will gain some reputation with the Ordos along with some loot. When you reach specific values of reputation with an Ordos, you will unlock a perk. These range from additional items in the store to increased damage against the preferred enemy of that Ordos. I think there was already a fairly decent amount of stuff to do at endgame, with mission packs and Void Crusades and single maps and all this. And although this doesn't add loads of extra stuff, the addition is nonetheless welcome. I have to say, any chance I have of going back to and playing some more Inquisitor Martyr is always a pleasant experience. I've been into Warhammer 40,000 on and off since the 2nd edition back in the 90s and enjoy the setting muchly. I've built up quite the knowledge in my head regarding the universe, so a lot of all the simple little touches, from what characters mention sometimes, to physical things like cogitators, servo skulls and named characters to mention but a few, it gives you that good feeling that the makers of this game care about the source material. And I will stress this, dear viewer. If you like isometric ARPGs, then I think you'll most likely enjoy this game. I don't know how long term you might play it, but it is worth playing through the campaign chapters and special missions and such, let alone any endgame stuff. This is just a solid entry into the genre that very much does its own thing. And I do know there is a lot of focus on the endgame with these sorts of games, while I do enjoy them when there is a focus on the story and building a world you can get lost in. I tend to get a character through the whole story, do a bit of the endgame and then try a new character. So being rushed through to the endgame to grind out what samey content there is isn't a high priority for me. Another game like this, should you be looking for one, is Grim Dawn, which is probably my favourite ARPG, and I've done a video on that too, which I shall also have on the screen somewhere abouts. So, as you can imagine, I definitely recommend Prophecy. It continues the fun of the base game while providing some interesting new options for character builds, along with a new small addition to the endgame. I would recommend playing the base game of Inquisitor Martyr first, but if you really want to get stuck in with the Tech Priest, then get cracking with this. The game is good regardless, but if you're into Warhammer 40,000, then I would suggest Inquisitor Martyr as a whole is a must play. I do hope there is a sequel of sorts, as I really enjoy the ARPGs from Neocore. And Warhammer 40,000 is a bit of a hot property at the moment, so I would assume it could do very well. I would surely purchase it anyway. Both this and obviously the base game is fairly cheap to pick up, with them and the other mission packs being on sale often, so you can probably grab quite a lot with your pennies. So check it out. And there we go, dear viewers, another video from me here down in the ancient hold. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you're doing well. I shall see you next time.